Hey everyone, it's Sahaba. Welcome back to the channel. We are going to be doing November's reading wrap up today. I'm so glad that you guys are here to join me. I am, as always, unrehearsed, but I have done a little bit of some compiling of data information for you, and that's where we're going to start. And you should be seeing something. I'm going to move over a little bit, somewhere across the screen over here, and we'll just go through some reading stats. Then we'll talk about the books that I DNF'd and the books that I completed. And yeah, we're just going to have a good time. So go ahead and grab a drink and a snack, and we will just get started. So first of all, for the stats, I read a total of 12 books this month with 3 DNFs. I had 1 advanced listener's copy. I had 1 5-star read. I read 6 audiobooks, and I read 4 out of my physical TBR. Now, as always, you guys know that my numbers don't always make sense, and that is because I actually listen on audio to some of the books that I already own physically on my physical TBR, just because I'm working and there's life and other things, and it just helps me to get to the books a little bit faster. I'm not someone who is going to debate whether audiobooks are considered the same as reading physically with your eyes. I don't care. I don't care about that whole debate. It's not something that affects me in any way. We're just here to have a good time. We're here to enjoy reading in whatever manner we can consume it. And sometimes that just happens to be that I mix up a little bit of audio with my physical reading, and it helps me to get physical books knocked off my physical TBR, such as Mistborn, which I know you guys are so proud of me for finally having picked up, which we will talk about in the month of December. And I'm actually listening to that book. I started it on audio this morning, but I do have a physical copy, as you guys have seen. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, the last thing about the stats. 11 of the books that I picked up this month, the month of November, were from the library in one form or another. Either physical reads from the library, that includes DNFs that I would have borrowed from the library, as well as audiobooks through my library or my library partner program. So I just want to throw it out there. And if you guys have been following me for a while, you will know that I'm a big supporter of my local library. I patronize the library as much as I possibly can. If you are struggling, if you don't have a budget for reading, just know that you are not alone. Anyway, I just wanted you guys to see that even content creators also are using the library quite frequently. And as you guys know, I do a healthy mix of audio and physical reading from library books. So that being said, let's talk about the DNFs very quick. I won't spend much time on it. The first one that I DNF'd this month was Eye of the Crow by Shane Peacock. This was a middle grade read that I took out of the library. It started off really strong. I really appreciated the writing, but it kind of plateaued for me around the midway point, and then by about 66% of the way in, I just didn't care what was happening anymore, and so I DNF'd that book. It is the first of a series of Sherlock Holmes retellings that starts when Sherlock is 13 years old and sort of comes into his own as a detective. But I don't know, it just wasn't selling me for one reason or another, so I decided to put that one down. The next DNF that I had was The Language of Ghosts, also a middle grade, same situation. I just sort of lost interest in it. I think that like a lot of times when I DNF a book, it's because I'm just not feeling it or not in the mood for it, or it's just not holding my interest. So The Language of Ghosts had a really nice premise. If you guys have been following my vlogs, you will know that I was really excited to read it because it had a family of kids where their parents had died, but they were the royals and they had been usurped, and they were living on this floating island as they were trying to run away from the baddie in the novel who was trying to like take over the kingdom and stuff. But I don't know, ultimately it didn't really keep my attention, so I put that one down. Lastly, I DNF'd A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. This was something that I listened to on audio. I cannot even tell you what the plot was about. I really have to think about it. It is a girl who loses her magic. So she grows up, she has this magic. She's one of the strongest people in her universe to have this magic, and she brings her aunt back from the dead, which as a cost completely depletes her magic. I mean, not completely, but it's to the point where it went from, let's say, 120% magical prowess to like 4%. So it's quite a big dip, and of course it shakes her and shakes her entire identity. But again, this is one where I again lost interest. The pacing wasn't great. I think it was meant to be like a cozy, and there was some talk of it being a romantasy, which I didn't really feel like it was. I felt like it was really just like a cozy fiction that had fantastical elements, but ultimately again did not hold my interest. I just don't think I'm the type of reader for this book, so I don't even know how many pages in I made it, but it was the last and final DNF of the month. Okay, so let's talk about the books I did complete. The first one I have here is Paladin's Hope by T. Kingfisher. This is the third in the Saint of Steel series. I talked to you guys about this before. It is the first also queer fantasy romance that is in the series. So you have Galen, who is our paladin, who we've met in the previous 2 novels, and then you have Piper, who is, I guess, a mortician of some sort, and they come together over, obviously, a cadaver which has been discovered, and Piper's job is to determine, of course, cause of death for the cadavers that they come about, and then they have to sort of solve the mystery of how these cadavers are appearing. So it's a pretty straightforward plot line, but also Piper has this little bit of a special circumstance concerning what he's able to do. The cat is like screaming, he wants to go out. So yeah, I really enjoyed this story. I gave this one 4 stars. I'm almost done this series. The only one that's left to read for me is Paladin's Faith, and I don't know if I'll get to it in December, but it'll definitely be a priority read for 2026. Next, I read Alice by Christina Henry. I'm not going to talk to you guys too much about this book because I have it slated for another vlog where I read different variations of the Alice in Wonderland story, so it'll be Alice in Wonderland retellings. This is Christina Henry. It's kind of like a horror fantasy, but again, you guys will have to hit the notification bell to be notified as to when my video about the Alice retellings goes live, and we will talk about this one at that time. I read The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. So this was a memoir that took me to places where I was really confused and gutted and angry and odd, to be honest with you, because I didn't know, and I watched the movie because this was like a book to screen that starred Brie Larson in the movie, and I don't know, like I can't tell if her parents were good parents or not good parents. And I think that that speaks volumes about this book, because you could look at it on the surface and you could say that these children, these 4 children, had to sort of grow up on their own, and their parents didn't provide for them the 3 basic needs that we need, which are food, shelter, and clothing. And these kids had to sort of fight for food, shelter, and clothing on their own, while their parents spoke to them a lot about philosophy and like a free living lifestyle. And their parents were certainly very loving in their own way and very creative and very philosophical. And the children made successes out of their lives somehow. But what a ride, you guys, what a ride. So I don't know if you have read this book or not. I highly suggest that you read it. It's gonna leave you in your feels. That is a warning. But I really like a personal memoir. I had a really good time with this book. I really wanted to like smack her parents a lot of the time, but that's just me. That's just me. So, I mean, if you guys are easily offended by bad parenting, maybe there's a trigger warning here. But again, it's such a nuanced book that you can't really decide, are they good parents? Are they not good parents? And I think that that is part of what makes this book so appealing. It's because you're definitely going to be in a gray area here. Every time you think that the parents have done something really terrible, they kind of like redeem themselves in a different way. I don't know if that makes sense. If you guys have read this book, let's discuss it in the comments, because it's definitely giving a lot of food for thought. Next up is The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. This one is the 3rd in the Thursday Murder Club series. I really enjoyed returning to the characters of the original 2 books in the series. I will continue with the ones that are forthcoming. I think I have a copy of The Last Devil to Die somewhere, and I think that there's another one that comes after it. I'm not sure. But in terms of the plot of this one, I gotta say, you know, it was kind of forgettable. I don't know if it's because it was forgettable when I was in the story, or if it's just because I read it really early in the month and I really don't remember anything about it. But I just remember enjoying it because I like the characters. I like Elizabeth and Joyce, and I like Ron, and I like Ibrahim. So that's really who I come back to is the core cast of characters. And then I guess the plot line of this story kind of like, I don't know, escaped me somehow. I think I mostly read these books because I like the cheek and the humor of them, and in that sense, the book 100% delivered. I think I gave it 4 stars at the time that I read it, but plot-wise, I really don't remember what happened. So there's that. The next book I do remember, not in the least of which is because I did watch the movie and I read the book half with my eyes and half on audio, and it is Room by Emma Donoghue. And this is another situation where it's a parent-child relationship. This book is related through the eyes of the main protagonist, who is 5-year-old Jack, and he has been brought up in a room, and that is the only universe that he knows. And he has various different objects, and he makes friends with those objects, and the only other person that he sees is his mother, whom, has made this room into Jack's whole world. And so Jack's mom, and I feel like I should tell you this, although it might be a bit, because it's not really a spoiler, but basically Jack's mom had been kidnapped, and Jack is the product of the relationship that was forced upon her by her kidnapper. So that could be a trigger warning for a lot of people, which is why I mention it on the channel. But essentially, this book takes place in 4 parts, where we are introduced by Jack to his universe, then to his mom, and then to whatever else the book has in store for us, which I don't want to say because I don't want to give it away. I will say though that, especially if you guys have followed me on my previous vlogs, you'll probably remember me mentioning that when I when I listened to the audio version of this book, I found it a little off-putting that the child's voice sounded like a child, which I don't know is weird, I guess, because it would, right? If Jack is 5, but maybe I would have enjoyed it more if it was recorded in an adult voice, because I would have known that the adult was reading for a 5-year-old child. I don't know if that makes sense, but the actor who read the audio version of this book put on a voice of a 5-year-old, and I found that a little bit off-putting. Once I got past that, the book was really, really good. I loved the movie. I would suggest you guys look at both. Do the audio, read the book, watch the movie. This one was a 4-star for me as well, and I absolutely loved it.
Editing Zahava here. So my battery kept dying while I was filming this video. I don't really know what happened. I had started to talk to you guys about Lewis Sacker's The Magician of Tiger Castle, which is a book that I also read this month, and I think that whole part of the video got erased somehow because of the battery dying mid-filming. So we're just going to sort of pick up from, I guess, in the middle of that. It might not make a lot of sense, but hopefully I can recoup a lot of it in the editing process, because I have taken down my setup and I've already changed out of the clothes I was wearing, and I don't feel like changing back into them. So hopefully you guys will stick around, and I think the gist of it is pretty much still there. So I think we should be okay. Anyway, thanks for being patient with me.
Okay, I don't know what's going on, you guys. I think maybe it's my camera settings, but like every 5 minutes my batteries are dying and I have no idea what's going on with them, so it might be time to replace them. It's very strange. So I don't know what I was talking about, or if everything I said got cut off or whatever, so I'm gonna start again. But basically, The Magician of Tiger Castle, I wanted it to be like Sacker's traditional writing, and it really wasn't. The snark, the humor, the sarcasm, all of the stuff that we love about Sacker was just not there. And so I was really disappointed, and I'm really glad it was a library read and that I didn't spend $40 to buy it, because that's what it would have cost me if I had bought it new in Canada. And because it wasn't on the bestsellers list, there's no discounts. There's no like 20, 30% off or sometimes 50% off at Indigo or Chapters or wherever. So that was like a huge disappointment to me. I think you could safely skip it and not miss anything with this one. Next up, I read The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. This one, honestly, I don't think I really gave this book a fair shot because I listened to it on audio while I was really distracted. I had so much going on while I was reading this book that I think I was only kind of half listening to it. But at the same time, if I felt that the story was really compelling, I would have more than just half listened to it. So I think that I'm gonna give middle grade books a break for now and not try to read so many in one fell swoop. I know that middle grade works for a lot of people. I'm not certain that middle grade really works for me. I think that when I was younger, I had a greater appreciation for it. I would read middle grade and YA books like Inkheart. I had a really good time with that one. But for some reason, my 44-year-old brain is just not connecting with middle grade right now. So I think I'm gonna leave that one up to you guys. I like Kelly Barnhill's writing for adults. Again, and I've said it before, I really like The Crane Husbands. I have a copy of When Women Were Dragons, which I borrowed from the library, read about 1 or 2 chapters, and then didn't have time to finish, so I ended up sending it back to the library, and then I bought a copy for myself. So I already know that I like her adult writing, but I feel like middle grade is just a little outside of my interest level. So I guess The Girl Who Drank the Moon was okay, but I'm not the intended audience. So I think that if you like middle grade books, you would probably like that book very, very much, because Kelly Barnhill is a really strong writer. I just don't think that middle grade is for me. So I read that one, but I'm not gonna go back to any of her middle grade novels. Now, a lot of the books that I picked up this month had come to me suggested by Danny of Danny Dabbles, who is a booktube friend of mine. The Girl Who Drank the Moon was one, The Language of Ghosts was another, and also she recently has read The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown, and she did not have such a great time in it. I also read it this month, and I had a decent time in it. So like, we don't always agree on things. Very often we actually disagree on things. The one thing we do agree on, however, is both of us, I believe, gave The Book of Doors, Gareth Brown's original debut novel, 5 stars. So we did agree on that one. Now, I know that Danny did a video, which I will link to down below in the description, about what do we do when our favorite authors disappoint us. And she was a bit disappointed by The Society of Unknowable Objects, but I, on the other hand, was not. I think that a second novel after you have a very successful first one is probably something that feels a little rushed, especially if you have financial success with the first one. There could be some pressure from your readers or your publisher to get something out there quickly to sort of capitalize on your wave of success before it sort of slows down or plateaus on you. So I think that maybe The Society of Unknowable Objects could have potentially suffered from a little bit of that, but ultimately I enjoyed the story and its plotline. It has to do with a group, a society who is meant to protect magical objects, and when we read it, we discover what kinds of objects and who who these people are and why they have been selected and what the magical objects do. And I don't want to say too much more about it because these things are sort of revealed in the plot as the story moves forward. But basically you have Magda, whose mother has recently died, and she's taken over her mother's place in the Society of Unknowable Objects. And she herself possesses one of these objects that the rest of the group doesn't know it exists. And she's got to sort of find other objects that need to be protected without sort of giving up the one object that she has, which gives her an ability that like the other people don't have. So I don't know if I'm making sense in what I'm saying, but I did enjoy this one. I want to say I gave it a 3.75 stars, which is a very respectable rating for me. Since if you know me at all, you know that I'm a bit of a harsh critic when it comes to books. I have to really be in my feels to give them, you know, a 5-star. But I did enjoy the book and I would recommend it. But the one thing I will say about the book is that the character's inner monologue, you know, the italicized writing that lets you know what the character is saying to herself, was super duper cheesy. And it really could have not been there, and the book maybe would have been better for it, because I don't know, I found that Magda's character was kind of like, I think that Magda herself was a good protagonist, but it was all of her very girlish sort of inner monologue thoughts that the author for some reason decided to include in the prose of this novel, and I really think that it could have done without it. So that would have been my one and only critique, only because it made her feel more like a teenage girl than the 30-something-year-old that she's supposed to be in this novel, because no woman in their 30s talks to themselves that way. At least I don't talk to myself that way. I just found it like really cheesy and really unnecessary. So I don't know if that's in particular why other people don't like this book, because I really haven't read any other reviews on Goodreads, but for me, that was a major, like, ick factor for me. Every time she had that inner monologue in the italicized writing, I was just like, ugh, eye rolls. So that would be my one major critique, but plot-wise, I think the story was fine. Next, I read The Library of Fates, which was an ARC that was sent to me, or an advanced listener's copy. It's not an advanced reader's copy, but I'll call it an ARC just because it's, you know, easier to talk about it that way. But I had an advanced listener's copy from NetGalley. So we're following Eleanor, who is on a quest to discover a book that has gone missing from the Library of Fates. And this is a special magical book that can control the fates of the people who confess their deepest, darkest secrets and confess it into the book. And Eleanor is taken over from the original librarian, who happens to have been Daniel's mother. And the story kind of takes us back and forth from their time in their college years in 1995 until the present day, where Eleanor has to reconnect with Daniel in order to discover who has stolen the Book of Dark Nights, which is the book that controls basically the fates and has gone missing. So it's kind of like a little bit of a complicated premise, although the story is divulged and told in a very linear, kind of straightforward way. It's just sort of hard to explain without giving away too much of the plot. I would say that this book was okay. It was not a fantastic read. I think that people that like magical realism will really get into this book, especially if you like books about books or books about libraries. But for me, it was just an okay read. I think I gave it a 3 or a 3.5 stars. But again, I can't really say much about this book because a lot of it happens in the library and a lot of it is a quest to find that missing magical object. So there's not really much I can say without giving away the plot. I know I'm not really giving you much here, and I'm sorry about that, but I really don't know how to articulate what the book was about. And when I tried to read it on Goodreads, there were so many typos in the summary of what the book is about that I tried recording it a few times for you and reading it out loud, but I couldn't read it out loud because there's so many typos because someone didn't proofread whatever they wrote. So I would suggest that you guys look it up to see if it's going to be the right kind of book for you, because I don't know, I almost like regret talking about it because it's so hard to explain what it's about. So the Library of Fates is a library in which there are books that can be selected by only one person. And usually that person is the librarian, who has some sort of a magical ability that enables them to select the right book for the right person. And the library cannot continue to survive without the Book of Dark Night, which must be in the library at all times. Now, we are following Eleanor and Daniel, two college friends who have to come back into contact with one another 30 years after college, because the Book of Dark Nights, which is the book that has to remain in the library all the time for the library to remain active, has gone missing. It was supposed to be presented at a conference, but someone stole the book, so they have to sort of track the book down. And in tracking the book down, more of the mysteries of the Book of Fates are going to boil to the surface. So we have a little bit of a magical realism story here, a little bit of a mystery. And then the fates of the people and the players involved in the library and its keeping are slowly revealed. So if you think that that sounds like a book that you might like to discover, I would say go ahead. I don't suggest reading the blurb on Goodreads because it's full of typos, and I tried to read it to you guys out loud here on camera, and I ended up having to jettison that footage because the little blurb on Goodreads just doesn't make sense, like someone didn't proofread it. But essentially, we're going to be following Eleanor and Daniel as they try to track down the missing book, and we're going to find out why that book is so important and what happens to the people who write their confessions into that book and rip those pages out. And then lastly, this month, I read T. Kingfisher's A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. It is also the last middle grade book that I read this month, and I did it as well on audio. And it's T. Kingfisher, you know, it's the same cheeky, sarcastic. I would say that it doesn't technically even read as a middle grade. The book itself is 306 pages long, but again, I did the book on audio and it was fine for me. It was a pretty run-of-the-mill T. Kingfisher. I gave it 4 stars considering that it's a middle grade and I just don't enjoy middle grade very much, but it was T. Kingfisher and I didn't want to pass it up, especially because my library had a copy of it on audio, and you know that I'm making my way through her backlist. So yeah, it was good. It has to do with a 14-year-old girl whose special ability as a wizard has to do with dough and baking. So she's really good at manipulating doughs of all kinds. And when she ends up discovering a plot to overthrow the Duchess, she sort of gets involved and is loyal to the Duchess and helps to set things right in the duchy. So it's a pretty classic, straightforward tale of an underdog, and it's done T. Kingfisher style. So there's really nothing I can say that I didn't like about it. I felt like the tone and style could be very accessible to an adult audience and it didn't feel too juvenile for me, so that was something that I appreciated. And yeah, that's going to bring us to the end of the November wrap up. I hope you guys had a good time. Thank you so much for coming here and hanging out with me and listening to my thoughts on the books that I read this month. If you like this video, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to hang out in the future, and I will see you again in the next video. Ciao for now.